Well, it's always something vulnerable for us, isn't it? Because we oftentimes feel a little insecure about our leadership. And when somebody does criticize or attack in some way, it's very easy to get defensive, to get very suspicious and hardened towards those other people. But we need to keep sort of an even keel on this. It's been rightly said that to the degree that you'll rise when somebody praises you, to that same degree you'll crash when somebody criticizes you. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in saying, I'm not gonna pay too much attention to either the praise or the criticism. Again, I use the illustration, the message of praise or compliments being like perfume. You should sniff it, not drink it. And so sure, if people say kind things to you about, wonderful, praise the Lord, and it's fine to appreciate it, but you shouldn't hold on to it too tightly. But then the same thing is true about criticism. I think we oftentimes are quick to either entirely believe our critics, which we shouldn't do. We should carefully think about and maybe get counsel from other people at it. But then sometimes we'll fall in the trap of believing our critics too readily. Other times we'll fall in the trap of completely hardening ourselves to them. And I've experienced this, Terry, that sometimes God has taught me some profound things through my critics, and sometimes critics who were real, to use it, just real jerks. And I didn't want to receive anything from them. But what I would do is I would take that criticism and I'd take it to the Lord. And I'd say, Lord, so-and-so says this about me. You know what a problem I have with that person. You know, I really don't like them. But Lord, I need you to speak to me. Is there something in this that I need to hear? And oftentimes there would be something. Usually not everything. No, they're not right about everything. But there was something in there that I needed to hear. You know, I think that I know my own weaknesses. I know that I take great comfort in knowing that I'm not as good as my fans think I am, and I'm not as bad as my enemies think I am. I'm somewhere in the middle of that, and that's okay. I'm just trying to serve the Lord. So, you know, people do say a lot of kind things to me about the work that I do, and I'm very appreciative of it, but I really feel that it's a work that I do for the Lord. I don't really write it for them. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm delighted that so many people use my commentary. I mean, but it just kind of swims around in my head as being like, okay, that's amazing. But man, I love the work itself more than I do the popularity of it. What the Bible tells us about leadership, it isn't just for church or ministry settings, but it really does apply in any situation, because if we will lead with humility and lead as people who really want to serve other people and love them, and those are just two among many principles of godly leadership, that's received well everywhere. Everybody gets along with people who are really humble. Everybody gets along with people who want to come into a situation and be servants and help. And so these attitudes, this kind of approach is very helpful. I've got a very good friend, and at his church for several times, he's taught a course on biblical leadership. But the way he presents it to his church is he says, this will help you in leadership in any area of his life. And he told me the story about one man who goes to his church and works at a factory in a city, and how many promotions and managerial positions this man has gained simply from applying the principles that he's learned in this biblical leadership class to his workplace. You will face opposition, but it is true that there are ungodly people who will oppose godly people no matter what they do. But if we're going to face opposition, wouldn't we rather face it for doing what's right and leading the way the Lord wants us to? That's a worthy way to be opposed.